Welcome back to Beyond the Lesson Plans. As homeschool parents, we spend so much time preparing our kids academically, but real world readiness matters just as much. Today, we're talking about why getting our teens into the workforce early and behind the wheel as soon as they're ready can build confidence, responsibility, and independence. These milestones aren't just practical, they're foundational for launching capable, grounded young adults. Good morning, Laura.
Good morning. Excellent intro.
I-
So true.
It is very true.
Mm-hmm.
So the name of our episode today is Let Them Work, Let Them Drive. And that is specifically pointed to the moms who are having a hard time letting their children get out into the workforce and getting them behind the wheel.
Yes. It seems to be becoming a bit of an epidemic there that kids are not. You remember the movie Failure to Launch? Is about a guy who's like 35 and still living at home with his parents because it's easy. There seems to be a little bit of an epidemic amongst homeschoolers of launching your teens into the world and letting them out of the safety net a little bit.
Yeah, I think that there's several reasons for them and they're valid.
Yeah, they're not all bad reasons, no.
But sometimes we have to push through that and really push our kids.
Yes.
We have to push ourselves to
let go a little
Yeah.
bit here and there. Yeah. And disclaimer a little bit is it would definitely depend on the child's to some degree too. I mean, if you've got a child who's not responsible at home, not responsible, they're getting into trouble, maybe with the law or whatever. Maybe there may be reasons, that you are not.
I feel like those
promoting them.
might even be better reasons to get them out in the workforce.
Possibly in the workforce, but do you think on the road
Oh,
too?
maybe not on Yeah, no, not on the road. But the workforce, yes. It's a bittersweet thing because you've had your kids at home. You have complete control basically over them, everything that they have access to, and then letting them go into this big scary building to potentially close a restaurant or close a store. It can be scary.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that, but it's something that we have to allow our kids to do.
Yeah, I think it's vital to making that bridge between a young adult and a child. It's just part of the rite of passage, I feel like. To me, it's something that I feel is necessary, but my kids worked a long time, before they were ready. So,
And also something that I know I struggled with was once the kids, it might be a little bit different for Genevieve depending on what she chooses to do, but once they start work, they're working for the rest of their lives until retirement. So that is a big
Yeah, because you feel like that's definitely a point of their childhood that you're letting go.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, this is now you're a working teen and your childhood's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but there are so many benefits to getting the kids in the workforce. I think that we have a lot to discuss about all the positive.
I think the positives outweigh the negatives. I mean, there's always pros and cons to just about everything.
Yeah.
But I think the positives I've seen far outweigh the negatives.
Mm-hmm.
But what's your first positive?
For me, I loved that I could still advocate for the kids if there was a problem. If they're not working, and then when they're 18 and there's a problem at work, mom cannot call the employer and say, why didn't this happen? Or why did this happen? You just can't do that when your kids are 18 years old.
You can try, but they're going to laugh at you. I mean, like, you don't even get to know.
Yeah.
This is company policy. This is, no, this is not for you.
Yeah. I remember, not so much with Anthony, but I know Genevieve, I did have to make a few phone calls to one of her employers. And so I don't know if the audience knows, but she's a type 1 diabetic. So little things need to be in place for her. Like she needs to have somewhere to sit if her sugar goes low. She needs to have access to juice boxes, or she needs to be able to, step away from her job for a second and have some juice if she needs to. So I was able to make those phone calls while she was still a minor and say, look, I know that you took the break chairs away from everybody because they were sitting while punched in, but Genevieve has to have access to some kind of a chair, So I think that for me was, I'm glad that she was working while she was so young.
I think, yeah, advocating for your kids, you're definitely, I remember one time he had a work study. So he's working with machinery and he's working things that he had to be, you're supposed to be 18 over, but because he was already trained in the position and it was a skilled trade type position, and he stabbed himself at work because he used the wrong tool to cut a zip tie. And so he stabbed into his wrist and it went in and poked out the other side. And he texts me and it was, he went to work he was work by 6 or 7, and so he texted me at like 9 and he's like, "Hey mom, I'm in the ER." And I'm like, "What?" And he says, I said, "Do I need to come? You're underage. Like, do I need to provide?" "Oh no, it's all workman's comp. They're going to give me some stitches and I'm going to head home." And I'm like, "You don't need me to pick you up?" He's like, "No, no, no. My boss is here with me," but it was just, I mean, maybe that's not a good example for go moms, get them out there in the workforce. But it was all handled properly. It was just kind of crazy that it wasn't something that I had to take care of, and they handled it right. It was just kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
this is a big deal, But yeah, I think advocating for your kids when they're underage is it also teaches them how to advocate for themselves later once they are 18 and moms say has really no bearing. I think that is one of a very good reason. One thing I think is that our kids are so exposed to us in our homeschooling world, and they're so used to us, and they know how to push our buttons, and they know what we're going to say half the time before we say it. But one thing that I do think is that when you get them a job, they have to work for somebody else, and they have to prove themselves because they'll get fired if they don't. And it does teach them to listen to authority other than you, and to kind of learn how to deal with other people as telling them what to do.
Yeah.
I mean, mom tells them to go sweep. Okay, whatever, but if your job tells you to go sweep, you got to go sweep.
Yeah.
And so it lays the responsibility on somebody else, and it helps come alongside you to raise a responsible person.
Yeah. Well, and also I found that things would happen in the workforce or in the workplace, and the kids would come home and talk about it. And then we could have discussions about maybe vaping, maybe stealing, maybe kids taking too many breaks. We were able to have conversations.
I think from working part-time after school or on weekends to going full-time at 18 is a huge leap.
Yes.
And so when they're working full-time at 18 and maybe they're going to school or whatever, they're so much busier that they don't talk to you about those things as much because, okay, I'm busy and I'm trying to, keep up with my daily life plus work full-time. So it does kind of change. Maybe they have a girlfriend or a boyfriend and they're just not spending as much time at home. And so you're kind of passing more often than when they're in high school, and maybe they're working nights, but then the next morning they're coming doing schoolwork and then they're going back to work and, oh yeah, you know what happened at work last night? And then you have that opportunity to sit down and discuss those terrible coworkers or whatever.
Yeah.
And you can kind of help navigate them through those things and say, okay, well, sometimes you just got to have patience, or, hey, why don't you go to the manager and talk to him about so-and-so not doing this, or, maybe you need to help him out, show him how to do it. There's a lot of personality schmoozing, that you have to help them with sometimes.
Yeah.
Because it's not like working alongside a sibling and you just say, get your chores done, or, Mom, they're not doing their stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot different when you have coworkers and a boss.
Yeah. Yeah, but one benefit for our kids too was they had a schedule that was more flexible, so they could work maybe during the daytime and do their school at night, or they could work nights and get up a little later, or they could work weekends and they can work longer shifts than some. I did find that once you find the place that your kids can work, they love the kids that are homeschooled because they're so much more flexible.
Yeah. it's just a different breed of kid. You know, you have kids who are, they tend to have a little bit better of a work ethic.
Mhm.
They're more flexible and they're there for a reason. They're a little bit more eager and willing to do more things.
Right. And going with our last week's episode a little bit is a lot of times they want the money
Yeah.
because maybe things are a little tighter at home than because they're a single income homeschooling family,
Mhm.
So a lot of times they're very driven by the paycheck
Mhm.
and they want to excel. And I don't know any of any of our peers that maybe their kids are working and they're a slouch,
Mhm.
or they're lazy. Once they get into the workforce, they're excelling in their department or whatever. But sometimes our peers tend to hold them back from working because they are leery.
And understandable. I mean, there are scary situations,
Mhm.
but really it is just so beneficial to have your kids out in the workforce
Yes.
when you have some control over what's happening.
And how old were your kids when they went to work?
So, Anthony was 14,
Okay.
and then I think Genevieve was either, she may have been 14 and a half, but she may have been 15. I don't really remember.
Because she started at what, Little Caesars or
She
something?
started at Little Caesars, yeah.
Okay. And I'm finding more and more people are not hiring under 18. If they're handling money or if they're
Wow.
working pizza ovens, that kind of thing. A lot of places are not hiring younger people. And I don't know if it's liability. I don't know if it's insurance. I don't know what the reason is. But it's kind of hard sometimes to find that right job. So at 14, you figure you're getting your kid a job at 14, 15, you're driving them there.
Mhm.
So it is an extra thing for you to do. I know my girls both started at a local ice cream shop at 15, and I would drop them off in the afternoon and pick them up at 10, 11 at night. It is definitely something that you're kind of.
It's a commitment for you too,
Yes, yes,
but it's worth it.
it is. Yeah.
These are the sacrifices that we make.
Right. Exactly. Maybe we didn't mention them all in last week's episode. um, but they do love the homeschoolers because they can work various schedules. Now, did your kids work school year? Well, year-round schooler, so
Mhm.
they worked all year,
Oh, yeah.
schooled all year.
Yep.
So I know a lot of people that their kids only work in the summertime because they have sports or extracurriculars that they don't work in the school year time. But my kids always, I guess it was seasonal. They were working like April through
Okay.
October for the ice cream shop,
Yeah.
But after that, they got regular year-round jobs and worked those. What type of jobs did your kids have?
So Genevieve worked at Little Caesars. She didn't do any kind of like babysitting, nannying. She didn't do any of that kind of stuff. But it was just straight to Little Caesars, and then she ended up switching over to Big B Coffee.
She had to age into Big B, didn't she?
She did. And that was even a process because I think when they hired her, I don't think they realized that she wasn't 18 yet. So they had never hired anyone under 18. So they had to like get some like labor law stuff and figure out all the logistics of that. But
So types of jobs. Let's kind of go through what types of jobs, because like Levi and Ashton both worked. I think Ashton was 12, Levi was 10 when he started working. Now, granted, it was a gig work, like
yeah.
babysitting. Ashton babysat. She did.
She worked with Becky, right?
Yeah, she job shadowed at a
Mhm.
salon, which is her career now. But Levi did lawn care for probably 8 or 10 customers from 10 to 12, 10 to 14 or something
Nice.
like that. So he had his own lawnmower, he had his own blower, his birthday present one year was a weed whacker from all of his siblings, a gas-powered weed whacker. He which was, again, it was a job for me too, because luckily most of them were close by. So we'd load up the truck and I'd drop him off and he'd call me when he was done and I'd go pick him up and I'd take him to the next one and load, unload, unload, And so it was work for me, but he was the youngest.
Mhm.
So it wasn't I wasn't hauling babies around or doing anything like that. So, but that is gig work. On the entrepreneurial, um, he had the pen business that he
Mhm.
did for selling pens and manufacturing um, high-end pens
Mhm.
for gifts and stuff. And so he did that from 10 to probably 17, 18. Um, but there's also fast food businesses. I know Culver's is a huge employer of the young people around here. I don't know about I
I
think
think
Taco
McDonald's.
Bell, McDonald's.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of fast food places. My boys were like, "I don't wanna work food." But Ashton and Gabby both enjoyed food service jobs. They thought it was fun, especially ice cream. Everybody's happy when they're getting ice cream. But Ashton said that was a huge difference when she went from ice cream to Qdoba
Yeah.
because the attitudes were way different. Everybody's happy when they're getting ice cream. Qdoba, everybody was hangry. They
Oh.
want their food, they want it now,
So
kinda thing.
that's, probably very similar to retail because I worked at a grocery store, Farmer Jack, and, a lot of people were not happy grocery shopping, and then people would come from Kohl's or Montgomery Ward's or whatever, and they would comment about how fun shopping customers are versus, like, grocery shopping.
Well, and that's a skill that they're gonna pick up too is customer service and working with the general public. You have to keep your little smile on, not I don't know that the customer's always right is the mentality anymore, but you still try to help them and get
Yeah.
them in the right.
And that helps out in the future for how to treat people,
Right.
So when you go to the grocery store, how are you going to treat the cashier? When you go to a restaurant, how are you going to treat your waiter?
Mhm.
Those are all like long-term life skills.
Right. And I worked as a waitress in high school, and I remember, you just remember how people treated you if they were very dismissive of you
Yeah.
or if they were kind and it made a huge impact to me that one time we went out for dinner a New Year's Eve with some family. And so we were a large party on a busy, busy night anyway. And I had a family member who was treating them very poorly. And I got very upset and I spoke my mind and I said, "Listen, you've never done this kind of job." I'm like, "Until you do this kind of job, you have no idea what it's like to deal with people like you." And I'm like, "You need to tip her very well. And don't you dare say anything to her boss while I'm around because I'm going to debunk everything you're saying." So, so I was very upset. And, uh, and it's just one of those things that I don't think until you've walked in their shoes, how hard it is to, a whole entire restaurant's full. They can't control what the cook makes if they make it wrong. It just is a whole thing for me. And it's like, oh, you treat your waitress nice. But another uh, option for jobs is skilled trades type jobs. I had a person yesterday call me and say, "Hey, do you know anybody that knows how to lay tile or we're looking to train somebody? Do you know anybody that's a hard worker that's willing to learn and we're willing to pay and we want an apprentice." And so I mean skilled trades is an option of getting into very young and coming alongside somebody. Maybe your dad's in the skilled trades. We have a recent graduate who him and his dad are going to start a plumbing business together. And I'm sure along the years he's helped dad, do jobs and that's just a great way to break into the business. And maybe you don't make a lot right away because you're not really worth a whole lot.
It's okay. You're gaining so many skills. It's a trade-off.
Hard labor. Like I know Bobby had a first job. Well, it wasn't his first job, I don't think, but he had a job and he worked at a equipment rental store
Mhm.
and he power washed the equipment when they returned it. It was outside in the sun and the heat, and it was cleaning machinery and moving stuff around. He wasn't old enough to drive the forklifts or anything, but he he learned a lot about the different machinery and he learned some mechanics of things and how to take them apart and put them back together. So that was also a good job. And really what he ended up doing to find some jobs because we had just moved here, so he was 14, 15, was call around.
Mhm.
He got out at the time the phone book And he's like going through and he's like, okay, who? And so he just started calling, will you hire a 14 and a half, 15-year-old? And they're like, yeah, yeah, come on in. Like,
Wasn't he also working at a farm with doing some hay or some straw
yep,
stuff?
yep, he
Yeah.
did that. Because that's kind of seasonal, or like one or two times a summer.
Okay.
Yeah, he would do that. And he because that's all dependent on weather and everything, so he would get a phone call and say, hey, can you come after work and do that? So he would maybe go do the rental store and then come home, shower, go back out, come back, shower.
Mm-hmm.
So he was always dirty and grimy, but um he he learned a lot, and still to this day, him and his wife will go bale hay if they call him. So, it's a fun thing he enjoys now. But you talk to that gentleman and he's like, oh, Bobby was one of my best hay guys ever. He really knows how to stack it high and keep it tight. And, just all these different things. It's just funny. Um, but they definitely learn, and making them find their own job sometimes is they get creative with it. It's just interesting because at Levi started doing lawns because the job shadow that Ashton was doing needed their lawn cut. And she's like, hey, do you want to cut the grass? I don't want to do it anymore. And he's like, yeah. So he just started doing it. And I mean, she had him out there. One day she's like, hey, can you run a chainsaw? I'm like, yeah, he's 11. He should be fine.
I don't know how OSHA would feel about that.
Probably not very good. But she had him out there just cutting up some small branches that had fallen in her parking lot. But it was just funny because she's like, can you do this? I'm like, yeah, I don't care. Just watch them. But one thing it does help them is to earning their own money helps them budget.
Yeah, I was going to say that's also a huge thing when the kids have jobs when they're young. You still have a little bit of control over their spending. So you can sit down with them and say, okay, we're going to put this much into your savings account. We can invest some money. We can give some money, and you have spending. You have a little bit more say.
Yeah, for sure. You can, I know Dave Ramsey has the app even, and I know my grown kids use it to budget for themselves. It's free. I know you can they have a subscription side of it, but they use the free side of it, and they just kind of enter all of their information in, and it kind of calculates their budget, and they all do very well with it. And they learned that early on, and they all plan to be single income at some point when they have children and stuff. So they're all working towards that goal of learning to live within their means and building up their savings and stuff of, their emergency funds and all that. And even my 19-year-old, I've got my emergency fund and I've got this, and I'm like, good for you, buddy, And one thing that our co-op did was we did do financial peace with the kids. And that was a very good, I don't know that I agree with everything of Dave Ramsey, but he does have good
It's a good foundation.
Yeah, exactly. Very good foundation. Yeah. Also, when they're working, it's a resume builder.
Yeah.
When you're applying for jobs now, they're like, where's your resume? Well, I don't have one. I've never worked before, And so it always looks good to have a little something on there. Maybe you're just babysitting, my kids had to do a resume in school because they went to the technical campus, and that was one of the assignments every year was to update your resume and make your resume and get your references. Would Joe at the ice cream shop recommend you for the next position? So having a little bit of work history and work study helps because you now have people that can vouch for your work ethic, and you're just not putting grandma down as your reference. Oh yeah, Johnny's a great worker.
Are you sure, Grandma?
Well, he works for chocolate chip cookies, so that works for me.
Oh, that's hilarious.
It also looks good on scholarships applications. Having a job shows you're responsible, shows that you show up when you're supposed to. It really is good for you to have your kids report to someone else. And, if they're not getting up with their alarm, they're not going to have the job.
Well,
Plus mom wakes them up. Which we've probably both done at times for, I know I've gone up to Levi and been like, you're still here. You're supposed to be at work. He's like, oh, shoot.
I've had to do that with Anthony. He'll fall back asleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, accidents happen, but in general, they're good employees and they show up. But,
yeah.
Do you see either of your kids being future entrepreneurs because of homeschooling and the freedom and the?
I would say Anthony prior to his current job, but I think both of the kids see the side of owning a business, how it is very demanding and how it sometimes is easier just to report to somebody and then just clock out for the day.
Mm-hmm.
Where if you're an entrepreneur, like if you own your own heating and cooling company, you're on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Right.
So I think that they see that. I don't think Anthony has any desire to.
I think he would be a good one, though. I think.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I think he has a personality and the salesmanship and everything that he, I think he would be very good at it. I don't know about my kids. Ashton already is self-employed. I mean, she works out of the salon.
Yeah.
And Jonathan, our son-in-law, has a little side business. Our daughter-in-law has a side business tutoring. So we have it in the couples, but not necessarily the main income.
Mm-hmm. Little, side hustles.
Yeah, little side hustles. But now a work permit. Now this is all depending on your state. Some states you can write your own kid's work permit,
which makes total sense, and I think that that's how it should be here in Michigan.
Yeah,
because you are the principal,
right? But yes, the work permit is stupid how you have to do it. But here in Michigan, you have to go print it off or you have to go pick it up from the local school district.
Yeah, there's two different ones. There's one for 14-year-olds.
I think it's 14 and 15 and then 16 and 17 because once you're 18, you don't need one.
Mm-hmm.
But then, so you have to get the right one and you have to verify take your birth certificate and like proof of residency and your state ID. And then you have to pick it up, take it to the employer. The employer has to fill out their portion. Then you have to take it back to the school, have them fill it out and sign it and all that. And then they keep a copy on file. And I swear they just burn it in the back room. I don't know how they got to have thousands of them. Maybe they just scan it in now, and then you take that back to your employer and there's a copy for you and there's a copy for the employer. So it's like this huge long process, and they've gone to legislation several times to just have parents sign it. And it just has not gone through.
Yeah, I don't know what they're so, because it is a waste of time and resources for the school district if you're not even part of it.
Right, because they don't know what hours you're working, and it's not, and being homeschooled, I don't think that I know you can't work more than 20 some hours a week, supposedly, if you're
with
in
school and work combined. It can't be over like 48 hours or something like that.
Yeah. So I think the most you're allowed to work when you're in school full time is like 24 hours or something. So it's just, but who's keeping track of that? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I know some of my kids probably worked more than that. And I know it doesn't apply in the summer, but it can be a very rigorous runaround to get all of it.
Not to be discouraging, because it's worth it.
Yes, it is. And if you have a private school nearby, they can sign it too, from what I understand.
That's really?
We always had ours signed by the private school where we went to church.
Well, I had to go to the public school.
Yeah, I did. I did for a couple of my kids, and then we had it done otherwise. But it is worth it. It just takes a bit of a process. And every time you change jobs, you have to do that same process. So the whole public school involvement doesn't make any sense. But check with your state to know what to do if you're not in Michigan. Now, driver's licenses.
Mm-hmm.
Or did you have any more to say on work permits?
No.
No. I mean, on teen jobs?
No, it's just very important. Get your kids out there. I know it's hard. You got to let them go. Because you still have so much say in everything that's happening while they're so young. I mean, you have a good chunk of time to really work with them and guide them through the process.
Yeah, I mean, and it doesn't have to be a full-time gig. Last time a few weeks ago, we had an entrepreneurial fair at our school, or I mean, at our co-op, and the kids all worked really hard up until then with their displays and their projects and all of the different things that they wanted to show and sell. And some of it was food items, some of it was crocheted items, some of it was crafts, some of it was watercolor paintings. There was a good variety of items. And that in itself was a job. And we didn't restrict it by age or anything. So we had little, kindergarten, first graders selling lemonade
Ooh.
or little bracelets they had made or whatever. And, it just taught them that I I have value,
Yeah.
and I can produce something of value and I
Mhm.
can produce something that people want.
Mhm.
And so I highly recommend, you know, participating in those kind of things if they're too young to get a real job, so to speak. But get them started young. Doesn't have to be all the time. It can just be an event,
Mhm.
but it really teaches them a lot, and it teaches them to value somebody else's work too. So I highly recommend the jobs. They're important, and they are good for
Y
and it can go in the transcript too.
Yeah.
So you can always put a work experience on a transcript and give them some credits for work experience, especially if it's something along the lines that they're learning as for school,
Yeah, I
you know?
got credit when I was in high school, legitimate credit in high school for working,
Yeah.
so
A lot of work study,
Mhm.
career education type stuff is out there. So look for a reason to put it on the transcript or a way to put it on the transcript. It'll help. Now, as far as driver's licenses, did you get your kids' driver's licenses right at 16?
Yeah, the second that they were, allowed to take driver's training, and I think in Michigan, it's like is it 14 and 6 months? 14 years old?
It's something like that. 14 and 6 months, 14 and 9 months, I think.
Yeah, because I started seeing so we'll back up and say when I was 16 years old, every single person got their driver's license. There was none of this, "I'm gonna wait," or "I don't wanna get a driver's license." Everybody had a driver's license at 16 years old.
When I was in public school, it was a summer school class.
Well, I was gonna say that when the state of Michigan decided to privatize, driver's training, they really did a huge disservice to the kids.
Huge, huge.
Terrible.
Yeah. And it is costly. It is expensive to get the kids their driver's
You
license.
have to start saving once you find out you're pregnant.
Yeah, it is something to definitely, it takes a chunk out of the family budget, it
Yeah.
does. But if you're getting them jobs at 14, 15, if it isn't in the family budget, but it's okay for them in your family to learn to drive, they can pay for it themselves
Yeah.
because they've been saving for driver's training, whether it's babysitting or lawn jobs, whatever. We did not make our kids pay for theirs, but it was something that they all, like you said, as soon as they can take it, they wanted to take it.
So, out of the 4 of yours,
Mhm.
did every single one of them want to take it, or did you have any a little apprehensive?
None, none that were apprehensive. They all were, well, I can take driver's training this summer. Or I did, I think I made Ashton wait a summer. I made one of them. I can't remember which one wait. And I don't know if it was because of COVID or if it was just the way that their birthday lined up with, it might have been Ashton. I didn't want her to take it because her birthday's in February.
I don't think it would have been Ashton because Genevieve was taking it during COVID, and they had opened it back up, and it was a problem with having too many kids in the car at the same time,
Well, Ashton took it outside.
but I'm
I,
saying their ages. Oh,
right.
outside in the lawn. Yeah, I
Yes.
think you're right.
She had to wear a mask outside in the lawn of the local Holiday Inn
Yeah,
in the back parking lot, and they had to bring a lawn chair,
I
and they
remember
took
that.
driver's training. It was ridiculous. But she wanted her license, so she was willing to do it. But I think she may have already, no, maybe she was 15 But we made her wait till the summer she was 15 instead of right when she was 15. And then she got her license the day that she turned 16, but it was still COVID. And so she had to make an appointment for the Secretary of State, and appointments were months out. So her and Bob took the day and made an appointment in some podunk town in Michigan, and they drove. She drove to the appointment, and got her license, and drove home. So it was just kind of a ridiculous time, but all of them were very excited. It was a rite of passage, like they were very excited to get their licenses. And none of them were reliant on the older sibling either. Like, well, I don't need mine because they've got theirs. So, we were very much, it's a priority. And I think that's because it was a priority for us when we were there. It's such a sense of freedom and independence.
Mm-hmm.
And since my kids all had jobs at 14, 15, it was a sense of freedom for me too, because I no longer had to take them to work and pick them up.
Yeah.
But it does have its costs. Paying for insurance for kids is expensive. But I must say, if you get your kids their license at 16 versus 18, the insurance company asks that. And so I know some of the family married in didn't get their licenses till they were later, and the insurance companies asks when they got it. So kind of establishes risk. The longer you have your license, the less risk of you are. So getting on their own policy was not a problem,
Okay.
I think it was a little cheaper for my kids than the ones that got it at 18.
Okay.
But one tip I have for taking driver's training is to take it with a couple friends. I know Levi took it with a couple buddies, and they really enjoyed it together. I mean, we used to take it with our friends, but we were all in the same class all day and then took it, But it might be a little daunting if you're a homeschooler and you're going to a strange place by yourself taking class. So find a couple of friends that are your same age and pair up and go together, because then you can do your drives together, and you can do, in Michigan, we have a segment 1. Then you have a segment 2 with, like, in between there, you have to have drive time. And then after you take segment 2, and then you take your driver's test, and then you get your license. So it's, what do you say, $500, $600 for the whole process? Yeah. And segment 1, just so you know, they're going to come out and they're not going to know a whole lot. And you're going to have to be brave.
That's an understatement. Listen, I have 2 things to say. The first thing is, when I was taking driver's training, my dad was working like second, third shift. I don't know what the shift would be called, but he was coming home at 2 a.m. So he would wake me up at 2 a.m. and he would take me driving then. I had the entire road to myself, and it was amazing. It really, so if you are afraid to get out there with your kids, especially if you live in like a city, high traffic area, go late at night because you have the whole road to yourself.
Are you a really good night driver?
Yeah.
Most people hate
actually. And my dad was a truck driver, so I feel like I'm just a good driver in general because he just taught me so much. But so that is a tip, because it is really scary. They really don't teach the kids anything in driver's training. And these kids, like, driving, you don't realize becomes so second nature that you don't even have to think about it. Everything's just so automatic. These kids are so intentional about the brakes and the gas and you're like, what are you doing?
Stopping behind the stop sign. You can't even see the traffic coming, but you better stop behind the stop sign. It's like, you can roll forward. No, you got to stop behind the stop sign. I'm like, that person's going to hit you behind you because they're not going to stop at the stop sign.
Yeah.
So you are teaching them real driving.
Mm-hmm.
They're teaching them book knowledge, and you're giving them the actual road knowledge.
Yeah.
It can be exhausting. It can be very mentally taxing for you, because now you're kind of driving, but you don't have any of the controls, and you're watching for them. So, but you got to be brave. You got to take the time and maybe you leave the other kids at home,
Uh-huh.
because I know a lot of families that are like, "You can't drive the family until you"
Yeah.
and that's fine, but dad needs to carve out time, mom needs to carve out time.
We had, Genevieve drove with my mom and my aunt, so she had a lot of outside help.
Mhm.
Anthony and Genevieve are 13 months apart, so their driver's training was very close together. I never decompressed from Anthony, so I was a little bit too high strung with Genevieve, and I just couldn't, so I had a lot of help.
Yeah, and I mean, anybody 21 and over can technically drive with your student in Michigan anyway, but it's just, yeah, there's a lot. We would let the kids drive, taking Bob to work, like, he's a insurance adjuster at home, so he's driving all over the state, and so there would be days where he'd be like, "Hey, I have to go here, and it's a 4-hour drive. Do you wanna go?" And they'd be like, "Yep, I'm gonna get my hours in." So there's a certain amount of hours you have to do, and there's a certain amount of nighttime hours you have to do, and so we would make sure that they had them in by their 16th birthday. So all of our kids did get their license, maybe not on the day of their 16th birthday, but right around there.
Mhm.
And it's definitely a hit to your insurance budget. And now it's really strange because there's been something that's changed, but even if they're not driving, they want to know if they're living in your home or something like that.
Hmm.
And sometimes they'll want to try to add them to your insurance. I don't know all the logistics because I'm not an insurance agent, but it's almost like they know that they've turned of age because they live in your home and they think that they're going to drive no matter what.
Or they're gonna try to sneak the car out. I think because I
Maybe.
talked to the insurance company, about I think one of the kids was turning 16 or something, and we were talking about that. You just don't know. I mean, they could sneak out and they could, steal the car.
Right. So it just somehow the insurance company keeps track of you and knows if you have a young person in the home, and so it is going to go up. And I don't know if it goes up if they're not driving. Do you know?
No, I don't know because they were driving.
Okay,
Yeah, I
yeah.
don't know.
So, um, you definitely, from what I understand now, you can take driver's training online.
Uh-huh.
Do you know how that works if they have to do, because they had like 6 hours of supervised driving they had to do?
Well, I think so both of no, not so I think Anthony came in right after Ashton because he was taking it online, and it was basically like they all logged into Zoom.
Oh, okay.
But then they did have to go and meet up at that Holiday Inn to do the drive time
Mm-hmm.
together, and he'd have to go to the Holiday Inn to do the testing, like if
Okay.
there was a test.
Yeah. Yeah. Because at the time that Ashton was doing it, well, I think that's why we delayed it, is because they were doing it so that there was only one driver in the car because of COVID. You couldn't have 3 kids in the car, and we didn't like the idea of her being in the car with us,
Mhm.
granted, he works for the company, but I'm sure he's background checked, but I just didn't trust it, and I didn't want her in with a strange
Yeah.
guy in the car by herself, so we had her wait. But it definitely, I wouldn't have traded it. I think getting their license is important, and then whether they get a car or not is, my kids all had to buy their own cars. So they didn't get a car, but they were free to use our car. But so you don't have to say, "Oh, they have their own vehicle right away and you need to provide that." They can, if they're working, they can provide for their own insurance. I know some families, they have to pay their own insurance, they have to pay their own gas, they have to buy their car. So it motivates them to, if they want it, to do it. Um,
Yeah, and it builds just so much confidence for the kids, even if they know, like, well, there's no point in me going to driver's training because I'm not going to have a car until, whatever. Well, you can still drive mom and dad to work, like you said, or you could drive to the grocery store, get to drive the family to aunts and uncles' houses. You just got to get behind the wheel and get that confidence.
Right. And once you do have your license, you can use the family car to go to the movies with your friend
Hmm.
or go to your job.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it can take a while to get a decent, reliable vehicle, save money saved. And so that's just something you gotta they kind of got to work through and
Mhm.
borrow your car for a while. And I know there's some families in our group that have only one car, and so letting it go out with the teenagers is a little risky, and they feel a little, so maybe you get the $1,000 beater and you have 2 cars now, but but I know, I mean, I think Levi, his first car was a little beater,
Yeah.
and he learned to work on it himself too, and that's another thing about them owning their own car. They go to YouTube University, and they figure out how to change the brakes and how to
Yeah.
change the oil and how to, change the windshield wipers and all of those things that it teaches them long term how to care for their own vehicle and how to maintain some of the things without pulling into the oil change place at $150 a pop or
Yeah.
whatever. So, that's a life skill that they're gaining.
Yeah, and they get a mechanic's credit.
Yeah, sure. Sure. Could have probably given Levi one of those for sure. Bobby too.
And, I know all this stuff sounds daunting, like, well, I'm not gonna go all through that, but, building off of getting them into the workplace, you still have a lot of authority while they're young. When they're 16, you can kinda tell them, "No, you can't do that." The weather's a little bit sketchy, maybe you shouldn't be driving, you know? When you just let them loose at 18, I mean, that's just a little bit too much freedom for most people.
Yeah, because it's like going 0 to 100 in one step.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And we've always used the parenting method of a funnel. So, when they're an infant, they're at the very bottom of the funnel. And as they become an adult, they're at the top of the funnel. And you release the funnel a little at a time, not all at once. And so they make mistakes. They maybe get fired. They maybe learn from their mistake. And maybe it's not even their fault. They didn't know, but an employer's got to do what an employer's got to do. But there's some hard life lessons that they might learn, and there may be tears involved just in all of this journey. There might be tears from you while you're driving around with them. It happens, um,
It does.
but it's worth it.
It really is.
It's worth it. And once you can say, "Hey, we need milk," and I don't load up, the 6 kids to go get milk.
You send one.
You send one, and it's, midday because you're homeschooling and it's not that busy out, and you're just like, "Hey, you go grab the milk while I make this or that, or I finish this up." And it is just a sense of relief of like, "Oh, I don't have to do it all anymore."
Mhm.
And so it's definitely one of those things that's just so worth it. And things aren't getting cheaper for kids. So, oh, they want the new iPhone? Oh, well, you need a job. Oh, you want the new this? Oh, well, you're gonna have to work for it. And the hours spent on the video games quickly diminish to just about nothing
Yeah.
because they're motivated other ways.
Yeah, you're right.
And you don't have the social media nonstop scrolling and the addiction and the dopamine hits and all that because they're getting their affirmation at work or they're getting it, there's just different ways. I think it's good for their mentality. I think it's good for them physically. They're not sitting around eating Cheetos in their bedroom. I don't know. But
I mean, you can definitely see, the positives of the kids working at an early age, and driving. It really just builds a lot of confidence, and they, maybe, even a little bit less of an entitlement mindset,
Mhm.
you know?
Absolutely. I know I can I've just observed. I don't see the day to day in a lot of our families' lives, but I could see the kids that I would recommend for a job and
Mhm.
those that I wouldn't. And even, for us, we asked a couple to help us at our daughter's wedding, just run the event. Can you clear tables? Can you do this? Can you do that? And I knew just from observing them, it, I never saw them work, like I never saw them out chopping wood or anything, but I just knew that they would be reliable, responsible,
Mhm.
working people because of how they respond. And so I think kids that work at home, have chores, have jobs, have responsibilities in general are so much better off
Yeah.
and they just become better functioning adults.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
It's important. It's a lot of work. Again, a lot of sacrifice and a lot of effort on our part, but
Yeah.
payoff, it's worth it.
I think so. And they learn that value of $1 so much faster. I remember we never did allowance. Did you ever do allowance?
No.
We never did an allowance, but you could wash the car maybe I had a list of certain chores that maybe you could earn a few dollars for. And so I remember them saving up, and they maybe were saving up for a year to buy this thing. And they always waited till Black Friday. And it was a big deal to go out with Dad and get it on Black Friday because Mom doesn't do Black Friday. And so they would get up and go early and wait in lines and do all of these things. But they knew when they plunked their money down that they had worked hard for that. And it was that item, whatever it was special and was very well taken care of. It wasn't just thrown out in the lawn or whatever,
Yeah.
because it was something that they had worked hard for.
Yeah. And then they start transitioning into, I had to work 4 hours to buy this. I mean, is that worth 4 hours of my time?
Right.
You know?
Then they look at their pay stub and they're like, the government took this much money?
Yeah.
And then they file taxes and they're like, I'm not getting anything back.
I know.
It's like, yeah, tough, hard knocks of life, but those are all things that they learn so fast. And it's kind of cute watching them come to the realizations of this is not working.
It's adulting.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Yes. Welcome. But definitely worth the sacrifices, definitely worth the time, the money.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that we do at 18, like up until 18, our kids, we paid the car insurance. They had to pay the gas and maintenance on their vehicles. So they were very motivated to learn how to do all those things on their own. But at 18, they take on the insurance too. And so paying their car insurance definitely motivates them to drive well.
Yeah.
They're not risk takers. None of my kids have been in bad accidents. A few have gotten tickets, speeding, whatever. But overall, they're very good drivers because they're motivated by not spending more every 6 months or whatever.
Do you make them get on their own policy?
No, they're on our policy, but they just pay their portion.
Yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah. It's astronomical if they try to get it on their own. I know a couple of them tried. And once they're married, I don't think it's as bad because they feel like maybe they're responsible adults once they're married.
Okay.
But going single and on their own policy, it's pretty crazy. And they don't really get a break until they're 25.
And I think Michigan, we have friends and family in other states, and you hear what their insurance is, and it's like, why are we paying so much? Michigan is just ridiculous.
Michigan is crazy when it comes to those kind of things. Supposedly no fault and whatever, but I don't know. My parents, though, are snowbirds both, and they could have insurance in Florida or here, and they say it's cheaper here than Florida. So I don't know.
So as two veteran homeschooling moms who have adult children, we're encouraging you to get them out in the workforce and get them their driver's license. Even if they're a little bit apprehensive about getting their license, you have to push them to do it.
I think that there's so much anxiety talk in society now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I hear a lot of, well, they're just so anxious about, the car's a weapon and they're just so anxious that they're going to hurt somebody. And
that's why you get them out there at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
There's always that risk. I mean, life is risk.
Yeah.
And so there is always that risk of an accident and something happening, but we can't live our life in that
state of fear.
No.
Yeah.
No, because we would never do anything. I mean, homeschooling's a risk. Not having dual incomes is a risk.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always risk, but I feel like we need to push outside of those boundaries of fear and really let the kids go and let them thrive and encourage them. Don't say, you're going to kill somebody every time they don't stop right behind the stop sign. You have to kind of gently be like, okay, that was a little scary. I remember there was one time we were driving, coming down 59, and it's a 5-lane at that point. So there's 2 lanes going each direction and a turn lane. And so we pull out of the dentist office, and my oldest was driving. So all the siblings were in the car. We all went to the dentist appointment, and Bob's not there, but the rest of the family would have been out. And he pulls into the first lane, and then he goes into the second lane. Then he's going into the turn lane, and I'm like, where's he going? I thought maybe he was turning the other direction. He doesn't know where home is or something. Like, what is going on? And then he starts going into oncoming traffic lane, and I'm like, Bobby, what are you doing? Get back over. He's like, oh. He thought he was going, like, I don't know, brain fart big time, but it was a scary moment. All of us remember it. We've all healed. It's fine. But it was just, we weren't in danger. There was nobody coming, but it was just one of those things that it was like his, like I said, they turn him out of driver's training not knowing a thing.
Yeah.
And so he just had a mental lapse of a moment. And I'm like, dude, we're not in England. We're not going to that sign. Get back over in our lane. And he did immediately. We were fine. Nothing happened. But it was just one of those moments, you're like, oh, okay.
Anthony had I think a road test the next day. So we went out to M5, and in Michigan, we have our Michigan laps or our Michigan U-turns. So we just were on this perpetual loop because we just weren't comprehending, like, there's 2 lanes to turn left, you got to stay in your lane. You can't just cut everybody off. And I can't tell you how many times it happened. And there was a lot of yelling and...
Now, these are not the stories that, is this like telling a pregnant mom your labor story? These are supposed to be encouraging that you will survive this. Just might be a little hairy.
And we're laughing. Have we been talking about this stuff for an hour?
Oh my goodness, yes. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Well, we thought this one might be a short one. Guess not. But definitely encourage you to pursue the hard stuff. Get them out of the bubble. Yet they're going to enter the bubble again because it's home and it's safe, and they're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
And they're going to tell you all about their day or their job or their coworker who got fired or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And it's going to create memories, and it's going to create, thriving adults.
Yeah. That's our goal.
Yes. And thriving adults is our goal. So.
All right.
Well, thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
You tell us what kind of jobs your kids have, or how old they were when they started getting a job, or the benefits or negatives of getting a job. Have a good day.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Bye-bye.